Welcome to The Human Condition, a weekly podcast that explores the interconnectedness of our physical, mental, and emotional well-being. Join us as we delve into topics such as fitness, nutrition, mental health, and motivation, and learn how to cultivate a holistic approach to living your best life. The Human Condition will inspire and empower you to take control of your health and happiness. I'm Robert.
And I'm Dylan. All right, so welcome back to our third episode. I wanted to first ask you how the boot camp went last week. So, for context,
boot camp, yeah, go.
For context, I hosted a boot camp the other day where I went and trained a few people, and I had you attend. What were your thoughts, honestly?
Well, I know we discussed the last podcast where I asked you about boot camps, and I felt like it was not the highest and best use of people's time because there was a diversity in the types of people that show up in terms of like health level. So how could you, how are you able to, to accommodate all those folks? But I think the boot camp at the size that you had was good, which was 8 people. And
yeah, it was about 8 people.
It was about 8 people. And fortunately, I feel like everyone who showed up was like reasonably fit. So, that was good too. But, I know you had some thoughts on what I brought up last time when I said it kind of felt like a money grab, and you didn't admit or deny. But, look, I went to it. I had a good time. What I did see value in, because, I was not a boot camp person. What I did see value in was meeting other people that I would not have otherwise had met. And so there was a few new South Africans that had moved into town. They were super cool. Had an opportunity to kind of, speak with them. People I probably wouldn't have normally met. So that part was cool. I thought the workout was cool. I mean, I burned 715 calories, so I wasn't mad at that.
Yeah, no, it was a good workout. It was a good group. I agree. Can you pass the tea? It was a good group. I think it was diverse and it was a fit group, so it was easy to train. I think it was, of course, easier. Like, I think if all boot camps were 7 people, then I would take back what I said, and I think that, yes, you can absolutely get results. However, what would you think if I happened to do a boot camp and it was like 20 people? I know my thoughts on it, but what would be your feeling as someone rolling up to that?
Well, you're going to have to separate them by fitness level, right? And I think on the warm-up, you can kind of get a quick assessment as to who's where. If somebody's winded on a warm-up, you may want to have a different plan for them than somebody who's like not even looking like they're, breaking a sweat yet.
Yeah, totally. I agree with that. And everyone was kind of on a pretty fit level, the last group, but I wanted to try to do a group of like 20. And that's the only complication is I think that there's so many different fit levels, which is totally fine. I can work with that. I think the harder part of it is having to set up so many stations and monitor those stations because you can't have everybody doing the same thing all at once. At least in the space that I'm doing it. You have to separate it into stations. But the whole point of me bringing this up was because last episode I was talking about how it's hard to get results for people that way. But based on the performance on last boot camp, at least the people that I had the last boot camp, I think if I was able to get those people to consistently come to boot camps 3 days a week and do like a PPL split, which is like a workout split where you work out your legs, so it's push-pull legs, where you work out pull, which is back and biceps, push, which is chest and triceps and shoulders, and then leg day is the next day. And that's what a PPL workout split is. I think if I was able to get them to come 3 times a week, so we could do 1 day legs, 1 day chest, the next day back, basically cover the full body throughout the week, and they consistently came, I think I could get the people results.
Yeah, but you know what? I feel like boot camps are like drop-in kind of people. Like if you talk to a couple of people, they're like, hey, I'm just in town for this amount of period of time.
That was the
right?
problem.
And, well, I think it's not a problem if you accommodate for that, right?
Yeah, but the problem is because the last time I brought up boot camps, I said that it sometimes feels like a money grab because I like to spend time with the people I'm training, and I like to assess them, monitor their progress, and I like to kind of be able to consistently or have that consistency. But with boot camps, it's hard to do that. And you also can't monitor their nutrition and stuff like that.
Well, that's why you got to cap participation.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, you have to, because look, there's no way you're going to be effectively teaching somebody, like 20 people as good as you could teach 10, right? And I don't feel like, I think more than 10 and it starts getting weird, like in terms of like clumsy.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to be able to.
Then you got to start charging more.
Why charge more? I don't think you have more, right? Because if you charge more, I'm sorry. So are you saying charge more because you're only dealing with lower amounts of people?
Yeah, if you only deal with lower, because like people who set boot camps, they usually do a low number, like
yeah,
$15-$20 a head. And
yeah,
if
but
you're
that's where you were at.
Yeah, I know, but that's because of our area as well. But like if I was doing boot camp somewhere in California, that price would be different. But my point is, like, if you're trying to do this for any trainers that are watching and are trying to do boot camps for a living, and that's how they're trying to make their money, because like I've thought about this myself. In order to like properly scale and make enough money, you have to either charge higher rates or do them in bulk, meaning a lot of people, big groups.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think it's, I think there's always something you need to, there's a knob you need to push or pull and a button you need to push. I think there's some kind of, different equation every time you show up because you don't know who's going to show up, right? In some cases you do, in some cases you don't. You can have a plan. But okay, so getting on to the point of, so you're saying it was not a money grab. There is benefits to it.
So
we talked that capped is where it needs to be.
Yeah,
and you got really lucky that fit people showed up to your.
Yeah, there are benefits to it for the people who show up to boot camps. If you show up to the boot camps consistently, and if you have a trainer who knows what they're doing, I think that's how I would sum it up. I think so.
Got it.
Now, on another note, I've been doing red light therapy for every single day for about a month now, I'd say. Maybe a little bit less than a month. Missed a couple days here and there. I'm usually the study guy who always comes on this podcast having read studies about something. In this specific case, I have not. I just know based off what I've been told. And I've been enjoying it. I've heard that there's a lot of different benefits. I don't know if I've personally felt the benefits necessarily. I don't know if I'm doing it long enough, but I know you do red light therapy. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, yeah, and considering the red light therapy you do is one you took from me. So, yeah that would be... so you didn't need to go down the rabbit hole. You see, I actually, when I purchased it, half of my enjoyment in purchasing something is like learning all about it.
Yeah.
And I love... checking out YouTubes on it and reading about it.
And for context, for the listeners, what a red light therapy machine is, it's essentially a panel of like specifically created it's LED lights, right? Like, but like manufactured in a certain way to give off a.
Well, it's supposed to, emulate the same benefits you would get from like a sun.
Yeah, well, that's when people ask me like, okay, I don't understand how it works. I say, well, you walk outside and you get the sun rays for like vitamin D, for example, the way your skin soaks up the sun. And red light therapy is essentially the same way. It just gives you different benefits. But I'm not super.
Well, it helps with blood flow. I mean, there's a whole host of things it does for you. I was really focused on, the quality of the lights I was getting to. And, I went with the Platinum LED for the ones that I use. Platinum's the company. And I think the one you took from me was the Juve.
Yeah, the Juve is good.
And the Juve was good. I liked Platinum a little bit better, though. Even though Juve was more expensive.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was more expensive.
I mean, I think probably because of the size difference. But when I use your red light therapy versus the one that you let me borrow, the one you let me borrow it's small. It's like the size of a book. Yeah. And this panel you have is like the size of someone's full upper body, a little bit smaller. And that panel, I can almost feel heat coming from it. So it feels nice. With the little one, I can't really feel that. So.
Oh, you can definitely feel heat coming from it for sure.
From the big one, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely going to get more of the LED lights because I want to do that dry sauna we talked about out near the pool. And I want to have infrared in there as well, like red light therapy.
Yeah.
But, look, I really, see the benefits from it. It definitely helps your skin. It just, there's a lot of attributes that, how proven they are, I guess, depends on what you're reading and what you're watching. But I like it. And it's something that I do all the time. But I usually do it, I put it on me because I like to take a nap. I'm a nap dude.
Oh, okay.
And so when I go to take a nap, especially if it's like in the winter when it's kind of cold, put that on. I just lay there. I fall asleep. It's 15 minutes. I don't want to sleep more than 15 minutes anyway, because then you like wake up all like kind of like cracked out. So I don't want to feel that way. I want to feel like refreshed. And so it's perfect because I can feel like it wakes me up when it goes off and I feel like the light gone. And I'm like, oh, boom. Like, okay, time for me to get up. So, I really like it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel good after I do it, but I don't know if I've seen any of the benefits that it says you're supposed to feel. But
it takes a long time, though. It takes months.
I'll keep doing it and seeing how I feel, because it was the same with working out. It was like a month to 2 months before I really started feeling different. Do you use Audible much?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah. Audible is basically most people should know what Audible is at this point.
Yeah, I mean,
it's an app where you can listen to books. Anyways, I've been listening to a book. I've been kind of like anti.
It's like full circle. I feel like I'm back at first grade. Teachers reading me a book again.
Yeah, I know.
I love it.
I'm like anti self-help book to a certain degree because I was super into them in the past, and some of them are just kind of like cringy and very generic advice. It's just like you're like, it just makes you cringe. But I've been listening to, of course, Atomic Habits, which I want to talk about a point from that book again on this episode. But I've been listening to a book by someone named Mel Robbins called The 5-Second Rule. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
You have? Have you listened to it?
No.
That's pretty good. She talks about the 5-second rule. And it's like, basically, the whole idea is how she breaks down the science, I guess. Like, I thought it was a little corny at first because she's like, I'm going to show you how to cure your own anxiety, how to cure your nerves, how to be able to have the most like intense amount of self-discipline possible. And she says all you need to do, it's like count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then do the thing. And that part was like, I was like, okay, this is a little cringy. But then she goes into the science of it, and it was actually pretty interesting. So I've been trying it myself. So like in the morning when I get up, I've typically I'll get up and stay in bed for about 10 minutes just doing nothing just because it's freezing before I get up out of bed. And since I listened to that book, I tried it. So basically I just said 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then what happens is basically a trigger goes off in your brain when you do that because there's nowhere to go after 1 other than 0. Unless you're a math nerd, then you can keep going. But for most people, it ends at 0, like when you count down from 5. So a trigger goes off in your brain for you to take action after that. Which is why she was breaking down why like NASA decides to do a countdown before they launch rockets and all these different things. And all you need to do is count down from 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then force yourself to take action. And it's easier to force yourself to actually take action when you count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, because you have like a chemical reaction or trigger in your brain that helps you actually take action when you count down. And I felt it in certain things, like for example, getting up in the morning, it's helped me. I'm just like, all right, 3, 2, 1, let's go. And with other things, I just think it's ridiculous, but I don't know.
Well, it's interesting. So I'm going to be in Dubai next week.
Yeah.
Or 2 weeks. And, we were going to go to the top of the Burj Khalifa, which I'd been to Dubai a few times before, and I never went to the very top because I don't like heights. Mm. And I was listening to a podcast, Huberman's had somebody on, and it was kind of interesting. And they were talking about, dealing with extreme fears when you're that high, and normally the only thing that really gets me is extreme heights.
Yeah.
Right. Even I've been I forget where we were. I think we're in Vegas or somewhere. I don't remember maybe the stratosphere or something, but the windows were angled out. So you could lay on the window and see like really far down. And I was watching people, and that's scary enough, right? Like you're looking at that and you're like, but you feel kind of protected. You're like, I'm not, this isn't going to break. But then I was watching people going out and doing the bungee jump and jumping off.
No way.
And my anxiety went through the roof. Like I was like sweating. My palms were sweating.
No way.
I was tripping. Yeah. Right. And I was like, there's no, but I couldn't even watch these people walk out there. Like I couldn't even watch it. And so I was listening to this podcast and I go, look, I really want to try to do some height stuff, when I'm over there this time, because, a couple of the things you could do involve heights. They have like a slide as well up there that you like slide on this glass slide and it's 100 stories up or something. And so he was saying that if you just kind of focus on breathing, he goes, just focus on your breath. And he goes, it totally takes your mind off, where you're at. And I was, and I thought about it. It seemed kind of generic advice, but he was talking about just redirecting your thoughts because, I can't even watch those movies where they're like rock climbing. Like, I think it's insane.
Yeah.
The dudes who rock climb, like untethered.
Well, that's just, in my opinion, that's just stupid because, I mean, you're like, I get it. It's for a rush and for the sport and stuff. But like at the same time, I don't, because one mistake and
You're dead.
You're dead.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not worth it. I don't care if the world's best rock climber listens to this podcast and messages us. I don't care. It's so stupid. Like, I don't care what anybody else's opinion is. It's just factually stupid that you'd risk your life for scaling a rock.
Yeah, I mean,
it's ridiculous.
It's crazy to watch for sure, but and I think, I mean, I obviously wouldn't do it, but or couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like both of those things. But it is insane when you get up there and, for me, it's almost like it's like a paralyzing kind of thing where now I know somebody else who also has a big fear of heights, but his is triggered where he wants to jump off. Like he has this insane urge to jump.
That's so weird.
Yeah. And I go, what? And he's like, yeah, I can't do heights. And I go, why? He's like, I have this like insane desire to just jump. And I go, dude, you suicidal or something? He was like, no. He's like, it's a thing. He goes, it's a thing where, some people just have a desire, like the way they manifest their fear of heights is jumping off. And
that's like me being terrified of spiders. I manifest my fear of spiders by touching spiders. No way.
Yeah. Well, that's not how I manifest my fear of heights.
Yeah.
Like that's for sure.
Yeah. I think if it would come to, like, in my opinion, overcoming your fear of heights, I mean, I would just say go to a high building and look down, but I wouldn't say, go do something like that puts your life willingly in danger. You know what I mean? Like bungee cord jumping or whatever, because then it's like, well, you're facing your fear, but at what cost? There's ways to face your fear at like where you can still face your fear without risking so much.
Well, and look, I have a lot of friends that jumped out of planes, and that, but they said that's different. Like I've known people who've jumped out of planes who are afraid of heights, but they said at that point, you're so high, it doesn't even feel like a height. Like you just jump and you go. And so
that's another thing that I'm like, I don't know. Like I just, for me, I wouldn't do because, it's just like, it's cool and all, the idea of it, but there's a chance that your parachute's not going to come out. And that chance there, to me, it's not worth it.
Yeah. Well, what about parasailing behind a boat over water?
I feel like that's a little bit different because parasailing on a boat behind water, those are two completely different things.
You're still super high.
Yeah,
you're hitting that water like concrete.
Yeah, but you could still survive if you fall. The survival rate's pretty high if you fall.
Do we have any stats on that, bro?
I know, but I have heard stories of people that fell parasailing and were completely fine. Whereas on the other side of things, I think I've heard of one survivor that parachuted and like survived. Like you're probably dead in that case.
Like I'll tell you, I'm more timid or more brave based on my health level at the time, which is weird.
Yeah.
Even in things that, have nothing to do if I was healthy or, not feeling so healthy.
Well, I don't know. I'm sure there's some cool data that you could find if you actually dug deep into that. But I feel like if the healthier you are, the more in shape you are, the more confident you feel, not only in yourself, but in everything else you take on in life. Like the more I've continued to get in shape, the more I've reached my like physical and mental like fitness goals. I've noticed that I've been much more confident in different aspects, the way I approach different things in life. Like when I get up and public speak, for example, I'm much more, I don't know, I feel like I'm much more in control of my emotions. When I am under a lot of stress with something, I feel like I'm much more in control. And I think maybe the same thing could apply to your fears, and that's why you bring that up.
Yeah. I mean, like and public speaking is totally different for me. I have no problem with that. The key to public speaking for me is just get through the first 10 seconds. But once you roll, you're rolling.
Totally.
You know
I agree with that.
It's just the first 10 seconds of
it's the hardest.
It's the starting point.
Yeah.
Right.
I think if I'm really prepared for some sort of public speech that I'm giving or public speaking, then and I can get down at least the first minute without having to look at any notes, then I'm rolling.
Yeah.
Then I'm rolling.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that.
So there was another book that I wanted to talk about that I already talked about on I think it was episode 1 of the podcast, Atomic Habits.
Mm-hmm.
Have you read that book?
Yes.
Did I already ask you that?
Yes.
But did you really read it, or did you listen to it? You listened to it.
No, I both.
Oh, you both?
Yeah, it's great.
I only listened to it. Anyways, there's something in that book that I loved because I'm constantly re-listening that book, to it.
It's micro habits, man. It's amazing if you can apply it and be diligent with it because it's applicable to literally everything.
Yeah. Well, what I love about it is how he talks about forget setting goals and focus on your systems. And I was like, at first I was like, what? Goals are really important because I feel like I've used this analogy before. But if you're in an empty room and you're told to walk straight and someone just puts a chair in front of you, you're going to stop. And on the contrary, if someone tells you to go to the other corner of the room and touch that corner, if someone puts a chair around you or in front of you, you're going to figure out a way to get around that chair to get to your desired destination. So I always viewed goals as a roadmap to help you move forward. And to a sense they are. And James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, does agree with that. But he was saying that your goals are nothing without systems. And that's what he said, why he's talking about. Forget the goals, focus on setting systems. Because you need systems in place in order to reach those goals. So, I don't know, for example, if, this is a health podcast, if I want to build muscle, I'm not going to just set my goal January 1st in the new year. Okay, I want to build muscle this year. Rather, okay, yes, I'll set that as a goal, but now I'm going to focus on my systems. So my systems will be, and I talked about triggers before, but the systems could be, I don't know, I'm just spitballing here, but maybe signing up for a gym membership, figuring out, organizing with my wife and with whatever I need to organize my work and figuring out an exact time every day I could go to the gym and kind of getting those systems in place and figuring out everything in order to make it as easy as possible for you so that when you start going towards that goal, all your systems are in place in your favor to help you reach that goal. And he was talking about that, and I thought it was really awesome and worth mentioning on this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I think other people would call that automation, right? You're automating your days. So
no, it's not automation. He calls it. He talks about it as building systems. It's not necessarily automation as much as it is it's on the same line of the topic where I was talking about last time, setting triggers, where you're just kind of putting things in place to help avoid it's hard to do a lot of things that you don't want to do. So you want to make it as easy for you as you possibly can. And that's kind of what he means by setting systems.
Yeah. I mean, what I really got out of the book, which I liked, was, the little things have the biggest impact, right? And it's all those micro things that I think in your scenario, you're saying to build your systems to make, one big system happen, right? It's like a watch. You have all these things happening inside, these little minute details that are happening within it to make the overall watch work. And, that's what I really liked because it's not big steps. It's not waking up and saying, hey, I'm doing a full circuit. It's waking up and being like, I'm going to start today with 10 push-ups and I'm going to do that for a week. And then I'm going to, evolve to 20 push-ups and then 10 sit-ups and then, and then you kind of micro step into these. But what happens is when you're going through that process, you're building and developing a routine of doing something that has, a workout involved, right? There's something in there. It's just the process of you doing it. right? That is the thing. And
Yeah.
that becomes the more important thing than what you're physically doing at that time.
Yeah.
Because you're used to doing something, and then all you need to now do is make sure that something you're doing is a positive thing, right? It's a beneficial thing that's going to move you closer to that goal. So, I really like that, because there's a lot of things that I had that I was, really wanting to get done, but they're big things to do. And they're like kind of long lead time things to do, right? And they have long digestive periods to do. And, when you get into learning and memorizing and, creating, it gets a lot tougher, if it's something that will take 6, 8, 10, 12 years in some cases to learn, to get good at. I mean, like when you learn the guitar, right? Like that's a longer term goal.
Yeah.
That's not something like, I mean, I'm sure there's some like savants that could pick it up and do it in a few days, but normally you're looking at least 6 months before you can.
That's why I like to liken goal setting to fitness, because nothing is going to, it's rare that any goal is going to take as long as fitness. Like when I say fitness, like for example, for me, it's putting on muscle, more mass, because I naturally have a smaller frame. So while I am like muscular, I still have a slimmer fit frame, and I want to kind of put on as much mass as I can. And that's like a year, sometimes 5 years to get there. Like I've seen a significant amount of results from when I first started working out to month 3. It's like, okay, wow, newbie gains. Even into month 6 in the first year, it's like, okay. But to put on the amount I want, I know in advance that that's going to be like a 3 to 5 year goal. Like that's going to be a long, long time to get to where I want to get. But that's why I talked about earlier in a previous episode, like falling in love with it rather than falling in love with a specific goal, falling in love with fitness, because then
process.
The process, exactly. Because then I'll continue with it even once I hit that goal and once I face, rocky parts of the road. But anyways, that's why I like talking about fitness, because like in setting up systems, because it's rare you're going to, like, bet you for most people, well, I guess most people goal is weight loss, but like for people who have the same goal as me, you'll learn how to play guitar probably way faster than you'll put on as much mass as I want to put on. You know what I mean? So that's where I think systems are so important.
Well, and look, I think it's a big difference of if somebody's spending 30 minutes of their day working out versus an hour and a half or 2 hours, right? It's what you put in is what you're getting out. So,
yeah.
What you're talking about are full physical changes, like significant changes.
Yeah.
Where working out is in a lot of ways, there's definitely exterior physical changes, but I feel like it's more interior. And for me, the exercise, what I prefer to get out of that is really more of the mental cognition benefit, right? Because I feel clearer minded. I like having, I like being on point when I'm done. And
Right.
there are studies,
Right.
there are, there is science around what, exercise can do for the human brain.
Yeah.
Right. And your mental cognition.
And everything. I mean, I was just watching a TED Talk 2 days ago, I think. And it was a PhD student. And he was talking about, like, imagine there was this magic pill and it could cure disease. Imagine there was this magic pill you could take that the doctor could prescribe to you, and it could help you look better and feel better. It could help with diabetes. It can help with a myriad of different things. And he went on in this TED Talk for like 10 minutes straight. And then he said, well, lucky for you all, the pill exists. It's just not a pill. It's exercise. And if he went on to continue through that talk, talking about how if you just exercise for a certain amount of time per day, and it doesn't even need to be bodybuilding or like intense, high intensity interval training. It doesn't need to be sprint interval training. It doesn't need to be resistance training. It doesn't need to be any of that. Just getting up and exercising, going for a 20-minute walk, get your blood flowing, try to, get your blood flowing, that you can literally put years on your life.
Oh yeah.
In a positive way.
Yeah, no doubt. And you said magic pill. But what's interesting is, I don't know if you heard this, but I recently heard this. There's a new obesity drug that is a pill, or it's an injection.
What?
It's an injection.
I did not hear that.
Yeah. And it's called like Ozempic.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
Explain this more.
Well, because, what happened was in COVID, teens, there was 45% of teens came out obese.
That doesn't shock me.
Well, which
honestly, I would assume it was a
not
higher
surprising,
number.
right?
Yeah.
So 45%, and now with body shaming and all these things, they're trying to figure out a way, because it is a national epidemic, obesity.
Yeah, it is,
notably
100%,
for kids.
100%.
So they came out with this obesity drug that is it's for obese, but also for overweight. Now, to be clear, like the way they justify overweight in a lot of cases, they're using like your BMI. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of people, even when I lost lots of weight in the past, technically I would have been considered obese just because I'm a heavier, I'm a full frame kind of like heavier person. Like, as they say, I have kind of like heavy bones.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends on your body fat percentage
Yeah.
and your muscle mass and all that.
Yeah, but normally if you're going by the height weight ratio, they'll say you're, normal, obese, morbidly obese, those types of things, right?
Wait, so what is this? Like a shot, like a vaccine they give you?
Yeah. But like for the rest of your life, like you keep getting it.
And what, it helps you keep weight off?
Yeah.
I need to know the science of this. So like, what's happening? Like, is it a vaccine that speeds up your metabolism?
Yeah, they said it helps with your metabolism, but it's for kids 12 years and older. So it's for kids. But here's the implications that shock me. It doesn't shock me that they're coming out with a shot, or even if it was a pill, in order to try to control obesity. That doesn't shock me, because I've known people to get, the gastric bypass surgeries, right?
Yeah.
But the thing with the gastric bypass surgery, is you have to change your diet.
Yeah. Otherwise, you'll have to go get it again.
You're going to go get fat again. And so now, think about this. They're coming out with an injection for 12 years old. Like, man, I ate like an idiot when I was...
Me too.
Until I was like
12,
25, because I couldn't gain weight anyway. So it didn't matter, right? I didn't care. But what's that? What's the education of a kid who can just get an injection to presumably stay skinny? What's his incentive to learn how to eat properly? What's his incentive
to move?
To move, or to understand calories or carbs or processed boxed foods or, natural whole foods?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, man, you want to talk about an onset of, never mind, any implications like that could come from the injection, right? Because, I'm sure there's going to be some side effects. I mean, look at any drug commercial ever on TV. It's, they have like the auctioneer guy at the end saying, and if, if your left arm falls off.
Side effects may include bloody diarrhea.
Exactly. Yeah. Or if you're lucky, it's only that. And so I was just thinking, I mean, it's just funny how they're quick to try to give that magic pill or that magic shot, and they're not quick to educate on, because look, we can talk about exercise all we want, and that's important, but 80% of your health is in the kitchen. It's what you decide to eat.
Well, I wouldn't say 80%. I don't like putting percentages on it.
Well, I put a percentage on it.
And I don't agree with that.
It's disproportionately more important to have a good diet than it would be if you had to choose one of the two.
Well, here's the thing. They each have their own benefits. So I don't know. I'm not gonna go ahead and do that. What I will say is both of them are very important. So there's three things. First of all, that makes me super angry. And the whole reason of this podcast is like, if we can help motivate someone to get into fitness and live a healthier, better lifestyle consistently, at least just one person, I'm happy. Second, the first two things that come to my mind with that, this is the first time I'm hearing about it, and it's absurd. It's terrible. One, usually when it comes to vaccinations, drugs, caffeine, whatever it is, your body gets used to it. It adapts to it. The body's an adaptable thing. So meaning you're just going to have to higher dosage. And I guarantee you that vaccine is more unhealthy for you than it is healthy, because it's like synthetic. You know what I mean? Whereas nothing will replace exercise and a good diet. Nothing.
No, but
Zero things will replace that. No vaccine. So what these kids are learning to do is not move. They're learning to be lazy. They're learning to have a lack of self-discipline, and they're learning to nothing about food, just to put garbage in themselves, which a vaccine can help. Sure, I'm sure a vaccine can help increase blood flow for a short period of time, but not consistently like exercise. Sure, I'm sure it can increase metabolism, but it's not going to help unclog their arteries from eating the bad processed food.
Yep.
It's honestly a solution that will backfire, and it's terrible. And again, nothing will replace exercise and a good diet.
Well, and you also think about, like all the diseases that come along with, sugary processed
Diabetes,
foods.
yeah.
Diabetes.
For one.
Diabetes is, a mega problem. And, I just can't imagine. Now, I mean, there was something I had heard, which is pretty shocking, but I guess it's not that shocking.
After what you just told me, I'm pretty sure nothing's going to be as shocking as that.
Well, I would say that.
By the way, is this FDA approved? Do you know if that?
Well, no, it's coming out now apparently, or they're coming, they're petitioning to be able to come out with it. Because think about it, like if you're a big pharma company,
yeah,
you're making trillions on this, right? Like this is a $1 trillion.
On the topic of pharma companies, you sent me a video earlier. You were interested in talking about something. I didn't watch it because I wanted you to explain. I watched like a minute and then I stopped because I wanted you to explain it on the podcast. So what is that what you were getting into?
Well, yeah, what I was going to say was the American Academy of Pediatrics is who set the guidelines for, pediatrics in the US and in terms of like, what they recommend, for children. And that American Academy of Pediatrics, that's a wholly owned sub of pharma. So if you think about it, right? If I came out with something, kids are getting obese anyway. This is what I would assume would be the case. Kids are getting obese anyway. So why not give them something that, makes them feel better, but also, we can make $1 trillion as well, right? The whole time. And that's where I think, some of the biggest, issues is just how integrated, look, like being in Europe, half the things you do. I remember when I had friends come over from other countries, they would laugh when they would see TV in the US because they go, man, you're not allowed to name other competitors in your commercials. Yeah. A lot of pharmaceutical companies aren't allowed to advertise in other countries, right? But in the US they can. And, for them to be able to create this drug that will, at least give you the appearance of looking healthy because you're skinny or skinnier and you're not morbidly obese or even overweight. And I understand morbidly obese is one thing. Overweight is a little bit more subjective because it's truly by body type. I just feel like it was a really kind of sketchy thing to be putting out there.
Dude, it's crazy.
Number one. And then number two, I think it was, really a disservice to all of the kids coming up because they have zero incentive to have to want to learn about health, food, any of that stuff, right? They're not going to want to learn about it.
It's ridiculous.
I just think it boils down to money. I think it's a great way because it has gotten a lot of attention lately, especially post-pandemic that, a lot of people are talking about obesity. People were home. Exercise was kind of poo-pooed through that whole process. Yeah. So it's kind of an interesting thing, but yeah, I was really shocked when I saw that come out, and I, hopefully it's not, as we just talked about it, it's not going to be as it sounds on its face, but you never know. Yeah. Right. And if it is, that's going to be a whole new world of, never mind the trillions they'd make on an injection from something like that or a pill or whatever. But imagine the medical implications of, hospital visits.
Yeah.
Like we talked about diabetes, all these things, clotted arteries, all these terrible foods, but processed foods are big money.
Yeah. It's disgusting and crazy and absurd all at the same time.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, and I'll repeat it again, nothing will replace exercise and a good diet.
Well, what's interesting is, you say exercise and a good diet, but the approach for a lot of people is, especially on the medical side of it is, you come to me and you have an ailment and I'm going to treat that ailment, right? They're not looking at a lot of cause. They're looking at a lot of effect. And
because they get more money from effect.
Well, true. But they're looking at it all very siloed, right? They're all looking at it in, okay, you have this problem, I'm going to treat it with this solution. You have that problem. Instead of looking at it kind of more holistically, we say diet and exercise, and it's just like a term, diet and exercise.
Right.
But when you say diet and exercise, that's a holistic approach because it's not just eating and it's not just exercising, right? It's an all-encompassing thing.
Yeah, and when I say that, it's a lot of work. I mean, exercise, that's another reason why so many people go for the vaccine, for example. I'm just saying hypothetically. They would go for a vaccine to help them lose weight rather than actually putting in the work to do it for them, because the work to exercise every day and the work to weigh out your meals, look at macronutrients, to purchase good whole foods and then cook those foods, it's much more work than it is to go get a vaccine. So...
Well, let me ask you this. So you've been through the process, right? You've been through the process of, getting in shape, losing weight, gaining muscle, doing cuts. Do you think the benefit was what your body looked like when you were done? Or do you think the benefit was what you learned on the journey of doing all that, right? Because you're completely robbing people of that too if you're giving them just a destination.
Dude, drop that mic. Drop
right?
that mic.
If
that
you think about it.
It's totally true. It's totally true. It's the journey. Well, I fell in love with the journey. That's why I don't have my goal. Like, I have goals, but they're not as I'm not so dog-headed on those goals as much as I am just enjoying the process of eating healthier and exercising, going to the gym every day. The feeling that you get from that and the process and the learnings that you get from that are amazing. They're priceless.
Well, yeah, in the beginning, you're going to make a list and you're going to say, this is how I'm going to get it done.
Yeah.
But when you're done, 3 months later, whatever, 4 months later, however long it takes, and you look back at the list you started with, it's almost laughable, right?
Yeah,
because you
totally.
Learned so much in that process.
So true.
About yourself, about, kind of A/B testing on what works for you, what
So
foods,
true.
All these things that you learn, none of that will exist if you just skip to it at the end.
Totally. And just to solidify your point, I was actually the other day looking at the first workout program that I made for myself, just like from watching YouTube videos. It was such a joke
from years
versus
ago. Yeah.
The way I program now. It's pretty funny. But yeah, to your point, they'll never learn any of that. I wanted to talk about use this thing that I was bringing up a second ago. If you're ready to segue into that,
Yeah, go for
it. So this, I'll tell you what I know so far, and then you can fill me in because I purposely didn't watch the rest of this video. But you were telling me how what I gathered from the title of the video in the first minute is that basically Coca-Cola and other processed foods are literally poisoning us.
Yeah, no, that was the Russell Brand I was listening to, which, he can be pretty controversial for sure.
Super,
like 100%, and I think he got, not banned on YouTube, but I think he got
shadow banned?
Maybe, definitely probably shadow banned, but, penalized, a few times. But look, he's bringing up things that are contrary to people making money, like big pharma kind of people making money. So I think that, that was the case. But the exec he had on there was super interesting. And, look, we know this because if you saw, Forks Over Knives, or you see any of these documentaries about food in the past or processed foods or Super Size Me or any things that they've done in the past, right? You know that there's a formula for junk food and they get you to the perfect balance of sweet and salty and where, you get like maximum dopamine that pops off in your head and you want more and you overeat, right? And you don't feel satiated as quickly when you eat sugars as you would when you eat whole foods, for example.
Right.
Right. And so they know that. And that's why when you go to like a McDonald's, for example, you'll see people get 3 burgers, not knowing that even the bun is filled with sugar.
Yeah.
Right? Like
the ketchup,
everything's filled with sugar. So you're not, if I ate a burger that I cooked on a grill that I bought with, I bought the meat from a butcher, I'm feeling satiated way faster than I ever would at McDonald's, right? But there it's a money game.
Yeah.
And when you go in, to there, they're anticipating that, right? All the way from the front to the back, whether you're getting, add-ons of hot apple pies or whether you're getting hot fudge sundaes at the end or, you're getting 3 burgers in between, you can put that away and not feel totally full where you would in a more kind of a whole food environment.
Right.
So there's a lot of science behind that. That's not accidental.
Well, just to that point, I just looked up right now because I heard this on a Mind Pump podcast, but I wanted to make sure. So, have you ever tried eating like potatoes and raclette cheese, or just a potato, a boiled potato?
Yeah,
it's super filling.
Yeah.
Could you imagine eating 6 of those?
No.
Right? It would be crazy filling. So I just looked it up to make sure. I don't know if my source here, Google, is 100% correct. But apparently, 6 potatoes for a large, like the big, large, like family-sized bag of Doritos, which I see people eat all the time by themselves in one sitting, has the equivalent of 6 potatoes. And basically, the reason it's so addicting and the reason you're able to eat the 6 potatoes without feeling the same satiation that you would feel from 6 actual boiled potatoes is probably because of the salt and sugars that are in there that are addictive.
Yeah. Oh, I mean,
I'm not 100% certain on this, but I'm on my.
They don't call it junk food for no reason, right? And that's the thing is that's all geared to make you want more, so they can sell a little bit more. That's their whole game. And now when you look back at it and you marry that up with saying, "Hey, I'm going to let these people make all this money doing these things that we know are bad for you," but it's a feeder system, right? Because that processed food system feeds the big pharma system, which feeds the medical system, and all of it's looked at in silos. This is what the video I was talking about too. All of it's looked at in silos, right? So, because if you looked at it holistically, you would know, oh man, like, this happened because of that, but this and this also happened because of this over here and that, right? And it's so much better for them to look at it in a silo because it's more profitable, right? I mean, you see some of these, diabetic type patients or, people who are morbidly obese who have a lot of issues, congenitive, heart disease, all these different things that they have, and they have like 40 pills they have to take.
Totally.
Right? If they took 40 pills is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Think about what they're paying in 40 pills.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I mean, it's a heck of a lot more profitable than 5, right? And 5 is a heck of a lot more profitable than somebody learning how to eat.
Now, what I'm about to say is super controversial. And second, it's super, super, super dependent on each person and their needs. I don't know every person who has diabetes or pre-diabetes. I don't know what they're going through, and I don't know what their situation is. However, now that I said that, side note, I'll go off on the story I'm about to say. That just reminded me, there was a guy who had diabetes, and he was taking all kinds of, he had a couple other issues as well. He was taking a lot of medicine for it. And the doctors never once, he was saying, prescribed him exercise and a good diet. They just said, exercise. They just said, yeah, you need to try to eat better. They never emphasized it like a crazy amount. They said, yeah, you need to try to eat better. And then he had to take all this medicine, which again, probably costs a lot of money. Turns out this guy's like super big into CrossFit now. He got really into exercise. He's no longer on any medicine. He was able to undo a lot of the diabetes. I don't know if he was pre-diabetic or diabetic, because I know when it gets to a certain point, I'm not sure if you can fully undo it or not, but I know you can help yourself incredibly. with diet when it comes to diabetes. Again, I needed to do more research on this specific topic and maybe make a whole episode out of it, which I wanted to do. But long story short, he's off all the medicine, and his main medicine right now is literally, just to bring the point of all this home, it's literally exercising and a good diet. Now, he's a little fanatical with it because now he's into CrossFit.
But you have to be.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, think about it. You know, people say, oh, you know, they're a little fanatical with their diet and they're a little fanatical with, you know, their exercise, right? Because they're regimented. Maybe because they have systems, right, put in place.
Exactly.
But
yeah, we don't know.
Think about this. In a bizarro world of opposites, right? You know, well, in a multi-dimension somewhere where everything's opposite. Don't you think it's fanatical when somebody doesn't move all day? They're fanatical about being lazy. And don't you think that if somebody ate junk food all day instead of eating health food all day, isn't it fanatical just inverse?
Yeah, it is.
Right? And
but
so people
go, so many people do that, they don't.
But that's my point.
Yeah, but yeah,
is if I'm not doing anything and I'm going to be a lazy slob and I'm going to only eat junk food because it's easy,
be gluttonous
and cheap, right? Am I not fanatical the other way?
Yeah, totally.
Right? And that's where I would say define fanatical.
Yeah.
You know, is fanatical, you know, looking after yourself? Am I fanatical because I get a haircut every single 5 weeks?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, you're not. And again, that was a wrong word to use because maybe he's not. Maybe he just batches a lot of content, so we see a lot of him. Maybe he, you know, maybe realistically he only trains 2 hours a day, you know, which is not fanatical to me.
Well, I mean,
because that's how much
not
I
to be
train
contrary to what I said, but I do believe you do have to be a little fanatical in order for it to be effective, right? Because, you know, we talked about James Clear. We talked about, Atomic Habits. Mm-hmm. It's the little things that all add up. And if I'm going to backslide and have something that I know is not good, and I keep backsliding here and there, and it's no big deal because I did this, that, and the other, my results will not be the same.
Yeah.
Right? My results are the same, or what I expect when I make all the decisions.
Yeah, I think you can
not the big ones, but the small ones too.
Totally. I think you can be fanatical if you have systems in place to be fanatical, where it doesn't interfere. If you set up your systems or your triggers,
there's a balance.
In a way where you can be able to train for 2 hours a day if that's your thing, and cook for another 2 hours a day. If you're able to have systems in place to make that as efficient as possible, where it doesn't affect your family life or work life or whatever else is going on in your life, then totally fine.
Well, you just budget time for it.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think that's what I do.
Yeah, it's no different than anything else. But I just find it funny how some people will say, you know, if somebody does have budgeted time, and, you know, you'll see it a lot. If somebody is making good food choices and somebody does work out, you know, an hour every morning or 2 hours every morning religiously, people will be like, oh, that guy's like a health nut. Yeah. Is that a health nut though? Really?
No,
you know what I mean?
It's not.
But that's where you get labeled. But it's, you know, it's incorrect because I could easily say, oh, that guy's a slob nut, right? He's a lazy guy. You know, like you can put it on the shoe on the other foot, but no one ever looks at it from the other way.
Yeah.
You know, and it's because it takes effort to do something that's worth doing. And that's that's kind of the big issue.
Well, that's it for this episode. We're going to wrap it up. It's coming up to an hour now. If you guys want to see more of this, you guys can check us out on YouTube, the podcast version here. We're on Spotify, iTunes, and pretty much every podcast listening platform there is. You can subscribe to us on YouTube at The Human Condition Podcast and watch these podcasts on video format. And then you can also go ahead and follow us on Instagram at The Human Podcast. And then finally, if you want to follow me personally, you can follow me at Dylan Reynolds Fitness. And yeah, that's it, guys. I'll see you next episode.
All right. See you then.